PLD, PJ Campbell, two mediocre white dudes on film. Because frankly, we know you don't have enough of that in your life. So we're here to give you more. And without further ado, here are two mediocre white dudes on film.
Previously, on a very special episode of Two Mediocre White Dudes Talking Movies.
Is that it? You done?
That's it. I'm done.
Wait a minute. I was waiting to talk about what it was.
No. That was it.
I get it. We're supposed to insert a montage.
That was the joke. Is that it's just a joke.
Okay, pretend
it's a bad joke.
I'm going to pretend I'm inserting montage right now. So right now, there's a montage of all the best jokes that we've had in our first three episodes. Our first two episodes.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, this is, time is the construct.
Timey-wimey, all that stuff. Anyway, we are here.
Hi! I'm PJ.
Two mediocre white dudes. He's PJ. I'm PLD. We welcome you to our third episode in history, and we are covering Scream 3.
Wait, really?
We are. Did you not watch it?
I might have watched Scream again.
Watch Scream again. It probably would have been a better choice, potentially.
That's where my head was at. I was like, I'm just gonna watch Scream again. I'm pretty sure I did the same joke the last time.
I think you did.
So it's probably not nearly as funny now, but
you got to keep going with it. That's what you do with this. You keep going with it. Eventually, it'll become funny again.
Yeah, pretty much. Or I was never funny, and they're just like, God damn it, why is he still talking? Which I understand.
You know what?
Because it's another two mediocre white dudes just talking about movies.
Another two mediocre white dudes on movies. We don't make them, but we talk about them.
Man, we do, and I enjoy that because there is a new Scream movie coming out. I still can't really wrap my head around the fact that 25 years later they're making a fifth movie.
Yeah.
It's so wild to me, but it's been fun to revisit these movies because I love that first movie so much. And every time we revisit the sequels, I'm like,
I love that first movie.
It's fine.
So much.
Yeah, I love the first movie so much. Until there might be one I really like, but that's not this movie.
We'll get there. We'll definitely get there. It's funny you say that. I'm not gonna. First of all, I want to say I'm not gonna do what I did last time. I'm not gonna try to change my rating of Scream 2. I'm sticking with it. It stays where we are. I think I rated it 6.5. I actually looked it up out of 11.
You did. You said a 6.5 because I was a 7.5.
Correct.
And I was like, wow, interesting.
Let's see where this one goes. I went into this one thinking this is going to be really, really, really low. This is always my least favorite of the first four. And I'm going to say, without saying too much, I was surprised that I didn't hate it as much as I remembered. I didn't love it.
I was a little surprised when you told me that, to be honest with you, because I've always had problems with this movie. There's a couple things, and we'll get into it, that it's actually surprisingly timely now in some of the stuff it's dealing with, and I don't think that was an accident. I think that they were just doing it at a time where no one else was going to say the stuff that was going on with Harvey Weinstein.
That's actually one of my one notes throughout the whole thing. I'm like, ooh, this is creepy. This isn't aging well. Yeah. This is not good. At this point, I'm like, oh my God, dude.
I would say that it's great, actually. It's aged it great because it feels like that's very much pointing very specifically at him.
They should have had all of his trials should just bring up Scream 3 and go, here you go.
Yeah, it should just be Exhibit A. Please watch Scream 3. But outside of that, to be honest with you, I think the biggest problem with this movie is it had just the worst tumultuous production leading into the release. And the first thing to note, and I kind of noted it last week, is that we went from December to December on Scream to Scream 2.
Right.
Within a year, Scream 2 was out.
Right.
This movie takes 2 years, just over 2 years, because it's February 2000, which is a massive difference in time because you could tell in a way that the reception wasn't as high for Scream 2.
Right.
Just critically.
Right.
And even I think with fans, I think they wanted to try to figure out if they could spend more time breaking the story and making sure that it was going to wrap up correctly. And so they gave themselves an extra year. I'm not sure it helped, to be honest with you,
think it would
because
help
then
more.
It caused all sorts of other things. You would think, but I don't think it did.
No. Well, let's be honest, though, there was other, besides the timing factor, there was definitely other tumultuous things that really kind of hurt it. I mean, we had Williamson had obviously, when he initially pitched the Scream franchise as a trilogy, he didn't really write out like Scream 2 and Scream 3. He had these like outlines, and he was able to go through it with 2. We had the script leaks, and that was always very damaging. But in this one, he was actually too busy to do much of anything. He got involved with teaching Mrs. Tingle. He has other things he was dealing with.
A TV show called Wasteland that like lasted a season.
Yeah, didn't work out for him.
So he writes this 20 to 30 page outline for the movie.
Right.
Essentially. And then the Weinsteins, because he's so busy, they decide that they're going to get Aaron Kruger, who had written Arlington Road and has now become much more famous for fucking writing 2 of the Transformers movies directed by Michael Bay.
Let me interject real quick. But I looked at his filmography and went, wow, there is nothing worth really talking about. Like, he has no real highlights. Like, the best film I think he wrote was maybe The Ring, the American version of The Ring.
Oh, that's 100% the best thing. And
Skeleton Key was fine.
The funny thing about that is that, oh wait, no. So he gets a co-writing one for Rings. I have his filmography as I'm looking at it. What's weird is he co-wrote Top Gun Maverick, which has not come out yet.
Right. I looked at it and go, oh no. Hoping that Christopher McQuarrie did more of an important role in that, I'm hoping.
Also, I regret to inform you I was wrong. It's actually 3 Transformers movies. He wrote the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th.
Yes, it's just 3 of the better ones. I can't even say that with the. Is there any better ones in that franchise, really? After the first one? The first one was kind of doable?
The 3rd one's the only one worth anything, and that's only because they have Leonard Nimoy saying lines from Star Trek. That's a fucking awesome.
I somehow avoided
fucking deceptive.
All of those movies except for the first one, I think. I might have watched the second one like once. One of these days, I'll have to go through it all and like sit down and really punish myself.
Did you see Bumblebee?
What was that? I didn't even see Bumblebee. I've seen none of them except for the first film and the second film once. So I kind of just didn't like them. I never really wanted to watch them any further. I did almost go see Bumblebee because of word of mouth on that one. But one of these days I'll watch the franchise. And
you should watch Bumblebee.
I will at least definitely watch Bumblebee. Maybe we'll even cover it at some point because we'll want to shit on it or something. Who knows? But
no. I don't want to go anywhere near that franchise other than Bumblebee. Like, I have a soft spot for the first movie, and like I said, like the third movie is not great. The best thing about it was that was in like the middle of that 3D craze. So Michael Bay shot the whole thing with 3D cameras.
Gotcha.
And so Michael Bay shooting in 3D, at least at the time, was interesting. There's some decent action beats, but that movie is. But that's the whole franchise.
All right.
So.
Well, PJ, are we here to talk about Transformers? Or
Sorry,
we gotta digress. We gotta get out of here and stop talking about Transformers.
Stop talking about. Fuck you, Aaron Kruger, for doing that too. But I'm sorry if you tuned into this. I don't actually mean that. But also, how dare
you?
What you and Michael Bay did to Transformers. But we need to move off of this because I could go down this route.
So he writes Scream. He writes the majority of Scream 3 based on some of Williamson's outlines and things of that nature. But the other thing we have to mention, which definitely had a very big influence on this development, was shortly before production began, the Columbine High School massacre happened. And in that aftermath, we obviously had a lot of issues with as far as violence in media, depictions of any kind of horror tropes, really, in media. And the studios were panicking a little bit. At one point, they were trying to talk about canceling potentially, and then they were talking about maybe having it go on, but not having blood or on-screen violence at all. Yep. How do you have a Scream movie
wanted it
with no blood,
and
no violence?
And Williamson's notes kept getting overlooked as they were going, and they were really trying to focus on the comedy.
Right.
And the whole part of the reason it got moved to Hollywood was because they looked at it as anything happening that was violent needed to be in a bigger city like Los Angeles and Hollywood, and not in a, well, just not even in a small town.
Right.
Like, they were like weirded out, and they thought that it would bring like a negative connotation to the movie, and that people would look at it weird. And that's such a weird thing for them to look at it as.
Right.
I mean, part of me gets it, but at the same time, I don't think I've ever looked at it as a single horror movie, because almost every one of these horror movies, really, the ones we like, are all like small towns, backwater lakes, just these, that's what they are. That's where they exist. They don't exist in big cities a lot of the time. I mean, sometimes there's city elements, but it's never the crux of a horror film for the most part.
Even Jason Takes Manhattan mostly takes place at a boat.
That movie should be called Jason Takes a Cruise.
That's true. Jason Takes a Vacation.
Or Jason Goes Boating. Jason Goes Boating. Jason Takes a Vacation. Jason Away for the Holidays. Like, I don't know. Literally, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole on this one, too, if we're not careful. But that Jason Takes Manhattan should have been named literally anything else, because the studio destroyed that movie with notes, too.
100%.
Because originally, like, 50% of that movie took place in New York. By the time it was over, like, 10% of the movie took place.
I remember watching it the first time, just going, wait, when are they going to get into Manhattan? And all of a sudden they got there. I'm like, oh, finally. And like all of a sudden it was over. I'm like, that's it, huh? That's Taking Manhattan, huh? But again,
yeah,
I digress. We are going to do a Friday the 13th watch through at some point. I'm positive, between the two of us. Like, we're definitely going to do that. That's definitely.
I'll say this: Takes Manhattan's not even a bad movie, though. I think that people get excited by the promise, and they're more let down by the lack of promise. That movie's actually surprising.
Last time I was saying, I agree. Like, the first time I saw it, I hated one of my least favorite in the franchise because of that hype. And I watched it again, knowing what was coming. I liked it a lot more. So
yeah, watch it as Jason Takes a Cruise.
That's what it is. Continue. Perfect.
I apologize.
In this place, we're watching Scream 3. And Wes Craven luckily intervenes in the studio and will not allow the no blood or on-screen violence. He basically said, we are going to do a Scream movie. If we're going to do a Scream movie, it has to have certain standards, is what he said. And he kept to it. Although, it's funny, you did mention the humor aspects. I would lean more on the humor aspects. I remember, without having read up on any of the production notes before, I never really read up on the development of this movie until now. That was exactly one of my major complaints the whole time, was that Scream 1 and 2 really kind of had a good sense of that balance of horror and comedy. This one definitely leaned in on the comedy. And to its detriment, I thought.
Yeah, I still contend that there's a lot of issues with this movie. Yeah. Some of the comedy is some of it. And here's the thing. The one person who should be comedic is the one person not in this movie. And that's the biggest fucking issue.
I'm going to pour one out there.
Like, that continues. Yeah, like, I'm going to pour one out here for fucking Jamie Kennedy, because there's no world where he shouldn't be in this movie as the comic relief. 100%. Again, the biggest problem with this movie, even out the gate, and I hate doing this. I hate saying it this way. Scream 2's sins affect Scream by killing Jamie Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. Still holds true this day. And you know what? Even they knew it. Even they.
Oh, they 100% knew it.
Because they even try, they find a way to bring him back. You know, obviously, hopefully you've watched the movie by now if you're listening. And you can find a way to bring him back in a way. And we'll talk about that when we get there. It wasn't the worst way to bring the guy back, I guess, considering like there was no other real. I mean, I remember at one point they actually talked. I remember even before hearing about this, is that they talked about bringing him back, somehow actually bringing him back, saying his family was nursing his wounds and he was never really dead or something like that. And it's like, that was a bit step too far, because Scream has definitely been a little more on the realistic side, less the supernatural side, obviously. I mean, there's some of the tropes. Obviously, the killer, comes back. They can take a lot of shots. But he was dead. There was no way he was coming back.
Yeah, he was dead. And, as this continues, like, we could go on to this, but, like, one of the biggest problems with this movie is that, again, just kind of like the second one, they were kind of making stuff up as they went. Some of it was to try to avoid leaks and stuff again, but there was literally scenes that were rewritten on the day that would change characters in and out that were not originally there, like changing beats from the movie. And I think that it really shows when you watch it. The movie feels incredibly disjointed. Yes. Like, there's never a point where I feel like any of the characters actually get really anything to do. There's one character in particular, actually, that I quite like, but for the most part, like, the newer cast doesn't do a lot. for me, and I think that they had something good, and then because they were so quick to wanting to get it out versus just letting Williamson do the stuff he needed to do, they like got someone else, and it's very clear when you're talking about it. And like Aaron Kruger even talked about it, he's like, when you're doing a rewrite, it's never totally coming from you. It's never the same as writing the original. So often what you look for is, well, who am I working with, or who am I going to be learning from? The answer to those questions give you a lot of motivation for pursuing a project like this. I disagree with you, Aaron, because frankly speaking, you don't match the tone of what Williamson does. And that is the other sin of this movie before we get super far away. And I'm sure that there's people who are like, man, PJ doesn't like this movie. I like the movie, but like, I have to be honest, it just doesn't gel like the others.
No, not at all.
Like, this is the one that stands out the most.
And Craven does his best, I think, to try to work it together. I remember in that same interview, you mentioned that like Aaron was not getting Sidney Prescott right, making her more of a Lyndall Hamilton type hero, trying to make her a real badass. Yeah. So Craven like kind of talked him down. This is what he should do. And Craven has his good moments in here. I kind of feel like more and more I watch it. I love Wes Craven as a director. I kind of feel like more and more the good stuff in this movie was Craven, and he was hamstrung by studio stuff and having a writer that didn't really get as well as Williamson did. And also the whole movie, I will give one more overall note to the film before we get into more of the details and go actually into it, is that this movie suffers the same loss that Scream 2 did in a way in terms of the new characters. Like, we just don't care about them. That's part of the problem. Again, the new characters don't do anything. And I realized why that is this time through. When you have such like vibrant characters that you created in Sidney Prescott, in Dewey, in Gale, fans love them. Fans wanted to see them. Yep. So a lot of times both Scream 2 and this Scream 3 sacrificed any real chance of developing new characters in order to give fans more of catching up with the older characters. So by the time they had the time, right, within 2 hours, they had more time to do it, but they spent a lot of time with Dewey and Gale. A lot of time was getting Sidney and Dewey together. It's the reunions that took forever to do, and really made it so that we can, when we get to know these new characters, we just didn't give a crap.
Well, and it's funny because, I mean, as we're doing this, and again, we've kind of noted, like, Scream 5's on the horizon almost 30 years after the original, and you look at it, and we're living in a time of legacy sequels right now. Like, we've seen time and again how these legacy sequels and stuff work, and some of them do exactly that. Exactly what you're talking about that Scream 3 does 2 years after Scream 2 comes out. Like, spending way too much time with characters without giving other characters a chance to shine. It's actually something that, like, ironically, like, Star Wars has done really well.
Yeah.
The Force Awakens spent all its time with with the new 3 or 4 new main characters before we introduce you to Han. Like, and I'm not saying that you don't hang out with Sidney in them, but like, there's a better way to do it where it feels balanced. And fact of the matter is, it's not balanced. And part of the point of that is the Scream franchise is like no other horror franchise. Fine, fair enough. Like, these movies continue to have a cast that rolls over from the previous movie. No other movie can say that they've had the same trio, I feel like, horror franchise-wise, quite the way that these have. Halloween is now closer. Because of the, Laurie Strode continuing to come back. And there's another one. Talk about another legacy sequel. It takes a little bit for us to actually see Laurie. We get introduced to other characters before we see Laurie again.
100%.
So it's just a weird choice. And I get the point of the choice, but it's endlessly frustrating. I mean, look, I think it's a ballsy.
It is a very ballsy opening because the first.
If you look at it, Drew Barrymore, she's the first murder victim in the first film. Then you've got Jada Pinkett and Omar Epps in the second.
Right, they're big cameo parts. Here, this time they go, okay, I'm going to take a character that was involved in the show before, the movies before, and we're going to kill them in the opener. That made it ballsy, and I liked that choice.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say one thing I want to actually talk back to you on one thing. I actually didn't mind.
You cut me off? You cut me off? You motherfucker.
I'm cutting you off.
You cut me off.
Because
You cut me off.
I cut you off.
And I was going to say, Yeah, you cut me off. It's fine. Go ahead. State your case.
I have a rebuttal
about why you're wrong.
I have a rebuttal about Cotton Weary. I actually liked Cotton Weary here.
I'm glad you liked him. I think it's
because I think it wasn't as regressive as you think it is. See, Cotton Weary's always been kind of like teetering on scumbaggery the entire time. I mean, let's talk about it. He cheats. Helps Maureen Prescott cheat. He's drunk out of his mind the whole time. Second one, he takes some time in jail. He comes back. The second movie is all about the limelight. At the end, he's kind of like, even when he's like becoming the hero, the reluctant hero, he's still kind of being a scumbag about like trying to get the fame out of it. I think he learned a little bit, but I think his main character has always been like that. He's not a bad guy, but he's not exactly a good guy. So it's like exactly the kind of thing that he would do. That he would like flirt with a girl. 100% believe that. Would he want to go for a little fame? Absolutely. I think when the dice is cast, he's going to probably do the right thing in the best of situation. But those other kind of areas, he's still morally gray. So I actually thought it was a decent enough depiction of it. Didn't regress too much for me.
No, I think it's fair. I just think it's weird because of where the movie ends.
Yeah.
And then, when you go into this one, it just felt backwards, but maybe you're right. And maybe that's the thing. Like, I kind of even said it last week, I think, or whenever the last podcast was. Listener who's listening to this, time is a construct. Maybe he was never really the hero at the end. I think I even mentioned that. I was like, maybe he's not. Right. Like, maybe I'm harder on it than it is. And here's the thing, is I like Liev. I do. I think he's great. I think that Cotton's such a great character that I actually would have liked to get more out of, to be honest with you. I would have liked to see him be more involved in what's going on moving forward, but I kind of get why they did this. And here's the thing. This is trying to do the Randy Meeks thing, but up front.
Right.
But the thing is that Cotton as a character is not a character I care about in the way that I cared about Randy Meeks.
True. But on the other hand,
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that, like, it's just 100% the thing that they're doing. 100% Cotton says this is them almost noting that they did something the first time.
And I agree, but I think this is actually why this makes it better, because it's a character we do know, we have some connection with. It might not be like we don't love him like we loved Randy. So it was still saying, oh, God, they're going to kill off Cotton. He's been there since Scream 1, so the stakes are high. We're not going to revolt. We're not hearing us revolt over, fuck that, they killed Cotton Weird. This whole fucking franchise is done now, right? Not like Randy.
No,
so
100%. I agree.
That's why it works. That's a good choice for them to do. I mean, who else would they kill off at this point?
Yeah.
So I like how that goes.
No, right.
We're
in agreement on this. I was not making a dig about it. I was more saying that this feels very self-referential to, we're going to kill another familiar character just to see where the audience is at and if they'll go with us.
Speaking of referential, this film is very referential, and I'm here for a lot of the meta referential moments they have, such as him out talking to his agent about making a cameo in a cheap slasher flick for $1 million.
Yep.
He's actually doing that.
Yeah, right at the beginning. He's on an off ramp that I used to take all the time up in Los Angeles, in Hollywood area, over by the bowl. I recognized it immediately, and I was like, "Hey, I know that area." I mean, whatever.
Fair enough.
I know stuff. I drink and I know things.
There were two things I noted about this opening. That one that I really liked, and one that I didn't, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the film, unfortunately. The one thing was a very little thing, and I hope I don't know, just indulge me here. When the bad guy, Ghostface, is chasing around the girlfriend, I mean, you see her in the apartment or whatever. She gets out of the shower. You see her get dressed. The music comes on, and she goes to check it out. Yes. There's a great shot that Wes Craven makes, and it's a little thing, but I really noticed it. I like that. She walks to where the music is. You see that her feet are still wet, and you see that she's dropped. She's leaving like watery footprints or whatever. And like whatever, a minute and a half later, she's running back and slides on the floor and knocks herself down and everything else. And I thought that's great filmmaking, setting it up. They actually showcase you that it worked in a way that it a lot of times doesn't. So I really want to point that out as a good job by Craven for that.
Oh no, it's so great. It's such a great setup for, you see it and you know
what's going to happen,
right? You know that something's going to happen,
right?
And it's such a great way to set that up, and then a payoff so quickly. Just boom, yes, is exactly what I set up. Craven's so good at that.
He is great at that, and it's a little thing. Like you're like, why are you noticing that? But because when you know, I remember when she was walking, I'm like, wow, she's still, even if she got out of the shower, she's still leaving watery wet footprints. That must be a choice. It feels like it's got to be a choice, right? And then boom, there it is. It was a choice.
I'm really proud of you for picking that up, man.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
The other thing about this, I have to talk about the new voice changer that they have, that the bad guys have. It kind of feels like a Deus Ex Machina for bad guys. It's a very like,
I know, 100%.
It's too, first of all, doesn't exist. And like, maybe I've been hypocritical, but because there are times in movies, especially in horror movies, where kind of like things like this will happen and it kind of won't bother me. I'm kind of like, it's a horror movie. Yeah. You know what? Michael gets shot 500 times and he still comes back. But this bothered me because it's like, it was so easy. Like, you could make any voice you want. You could sound like that. I mean, I would love to have something like that.
And it plays through the whole movie too. It's not like a one-off thing.
That's what it is.
If it had been one,
if it had been the one time,
if
only.
it had been, and it should have been the only time was the opening. Right. It should have only been the Cotton thing, and the reason it should have only been the Cotton thing is because he's on television all the time now. He's a host.
Exactly.
Sure, okay, you can replicate his voice. I get it. Like, fine. I can buy into that. It's the fact that this is a continuing thing through the movie that drives me nuts.
It does drive me nuts. And even that it's Cotton Weary, at that time in 2000, that was still kind of a stretch. But like you said, if it was the one time, you'd be kind of like, I'll let it go. But like every single time, made people be able to like, it was just so easy for the bad guys to do that. And then it became this idea of throwing red herrings left and right. And I just got tired of it really quickly. And it's one of the downfalls of the movie, as much as I have to say.
I'll say this. To your point, the biggest problem with this movie is that everyone and everything feels like a red herring to the point of its detriment.
Agreed.
I think that Scream 2, I never buy into that anyone is really going to be the killer. You know what I'm saying? We kind of talked about that. Like, I don't know enough of these characters to buy into that, any of them being a killer.
Right.
This one is trying to convince me that any one of them would be a killer. Right. And it's such a weird change in my mind that it doesn't quite work. Like, it's fine, but it feels, again, like an overcorrection from, people didn't love some of the stuff in the second one. Let's try to do it the other way.
Right.
And it doesn't land fully.
Part of the problem, I think, is that in the original Scream, it could have been anyone. We didn't know the characters well enough.
Right.
Could have been Randy. It could have been Dewey. It could have been Gail. We didn't know enough. By this point, we know it's going to be Sydney. We know it's not going to be Gail. We know it's not going to be Dewey. We knew it wasn't going to be Randy. And we're pretty sure at this point it's not going to be Cotton. Okay, then Cotton dies, so we know it's not Cotton. But also, you take that away.
You're 100% Cotton.
That it's 100% Cotton is not Cotton. 100% not Cotton. That's what the killer is. The killer is 100% not Cotton. 100% polyester.
Yeah. Nicely done. Good joke.
But the rest of the film, that takes away, because there's such big parts, that takes away half your cast. Also, it's kind of like,
do you know why?
Give it to me.
Do you know why that this is the way it is?
Go ahead. Hit me.
Williamson's original screenplay for the movie, an idea was at the end of the movie that it was a group of killers.
I remember reading that. I do remember reading that at some point.
And the idea was that they were all like part of a Woodsboro Stab fan club and had taken, like, essentially pretended this whole time that they weren't, and like it was like a big group effort.
Right.
You can see the DNA of that still.
Yeah.
And that's why it's going out of its way to be like, look at all these people who could potentially be the killer, because the idea was that they were all going to be the killer. Then it pulls way, way, way fucking back on that.
Well, the thing is also, it's a hard thing to pull off, because if everybody's a killer, then who dies?
Well, I mean, if it's Scream, maybe some side characters. I think it would have probably been like 4 or 5 people. I don't think it would have been everyone. Yeah. But I mean, at least you can see in the DNA that there was this idea that it was definitely supposed to be more than one.
Makes sense.
But I just kind of spoiled it. Sorry for anyone who has never seen the movie.
Damn you, PJ.
I don't know what you're doing here. Yeah, I know, but it is just one killer this time, and that's a choice
Fresh take.
that was made, and it's a fresh take, and we'll get to it, but I don't think it fully lands.
Oh, it doesn't. It definitely doesn't.
And that's my whole thing with this movie. Every time we talk about stuff, I'm like, there's good ideas. It doesn't quite land.
And yeah, and we'll get there. So, all right. So the opening happened. I actually give this opening a very big thumbs up. I like that. I liked it better than the second one, to be honest with you. The first one's still the all-time. It's the OG. You can't really place it. But as a way to do something without trying to replicate the first one, this was a solid effort. So I was very cool with that. So we move on. We meet Sydney and her dog, and she's kind of a little bit Laurie Strode, but just not as badass. And she's like kind of retired to land. She's in a countryside with all locked doors, and
it's the better version of the Laurie Strode.
Right, in a way, exactly. Almost like more of the H2O Laurie Strode.
Yes,
in a way.
Again, the better version of the Laurie Strode. I'm throwing heaters tonight, man. I'm just like, screw this and screw that, and that's not like.
No, what's wrong, man?
What's happening?
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
Nothing. I feel
great. Need a hug?
I'm having. I mean, look, I could always use a hug. I'm out of alcohol at the moment. I finished my mead because I drink mead like a
distinguished gentleman.
Yeah, I was gonna say someone from the old times, but distinguished gentleman sounds so much better. So I appreciate it.
I'm here for you. But yeah. So she's there with
she's there, and you know what I like about this though? Not to cut you off, I apologize.
Okay. I did to you, so it's okay.
I really like this idea that Sydney has put her traumas into helping people.
Yes, agreed.
And she's doing like this woman's help hotline for women in need. And I thought this was such a great choice for her as a character. I thought it was really... Okay, I'm going to say it. This is the biggest problem with Halloween 2018, and we'll talk about it eventually. I don't like that Laurie never moves on and doesn't find a way to like live her life. I like here Sydney gets a chance to like move forward. She's still living paranoid. She's out in the middle of nowhere, but she's still using her traumas and things like that to help other people.
Yeah.
And find a way to move it forward. And it's such a big swing, and it works.
I agree. Yeah, the whole thing works for me. I mean, even though, as we come to find out towards the end, she kind of I don't know if regrets the choice is the wrong word. She regrets withdrawing completely, I guess is the way to say it. But I like how they showcase her in the beginning, and it does show some great. It gives her a way to grow, which I do like. Sydney's definitely not. Is definitely not the downfall of this movie at all. Sidney Prescott is really probably one of the best parts about this movie, including Neve Campbell's performance. She nails it.
The biggest problem is once we're introduced to her, we don't see her again for like 20 minutes. That's the big problem, is that she disappears for a good chunk of the movie. Because
we have to devote a lot of time to Gail and Dewey. And that's part of what happens. Because that's where we go to next, as we kind of see. First, we get Gail and Patrick Dempsey, of course, is in this as Kincaid.
Mark Kincaid, Detective Mark Kincaid.
And I'm not a fan. I got to tell you, I'm not a fan of him in this movie. He did not fully develop. Like, they want him to be this one thing, then they want him to be. Although I will say that the red herring that it's him is the one that is the best of the red herrings.
It's the best
because it's well laid out throughout.
Yes.
The only reason I mean, if he was the killer, I almost would have liked that better, to be honest with you. Except for the fact that it was too laid out. Because to me, it was a little bit obvious eventually that was the red herring. But they do it well enough that you're kind of like, you do have doubts. But
it's funny you say that, because I really like his character. This is me pushing back on you of the Cotton Weary of it all.
Let's hear for it.
I actually like his character because there's something about this is the first time that they've used the trope again, because he clearly has like feelings for Sydney, and he's trying to do his job, but he's also trying not to like let his feelings get in the way, but he clearly wants to let his feelings get in the way. And so it kind of muddies the waters in a way that I felt like Scream 2 never properly did, where it wanted why am I
Jerry
his name? Thank you, Jerry O'Connell. And him, like, I never buy into that, right? They definitely set up that it could be Jerry O'Connell. I knew that they wouldn't go for it for the third time. So the setup isn't super, like, I get why they're doing it, but I never buy into it, and I just like him as a character. I think that there's something really interesting about the way he interacts with everyone, and like he kind of has this like headbutting thing with Gale for a little bit, and there's just these moments with him that are really good, and it's actually super frustrating to me. Spoiler alert, he survives the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's never talked about again in the fourth one. And that's weird to me because for someone who Sydney like lets into her life, he's just no longer a part of it. And I guess like people move on and people change, but it was just such a weird thing to me because I feel like he would have still been around.
I get that too, right? I think my problem with him, honestly, I'm not a huge Patrick Dempsey fan. I'll be honest with you. He's not done much that really like impresses me. I've never.
He has a great name.
Great name. I'll give you that. Great name.
The first name in particular.
It would have been better if it was maybe Paul Dempsey, but that's okay. I'll let it go for now.
No. Patrick Dempsey is the right name.
Well, maybe he is for this.
If it was yeah. Patrick Dempsey. Good name. Good name. That's all.
But he's not a good cop. I don't buy him as a detective. That's my problem with him. Like, I just find like he just seems like I would like to have him in a different role, I think. Because as a homicide detective, he just comes across, I don't even know how to say it, but I just never, I guess I don't want the typical cliched hard-boiled detective kind of thing, but this just seemed too wishy-washy floaty to be a real homicide detective. That was really, it just struck me as false. I never buy him.
That's fair. I mean, look, it's a Hollywood movie. We have that happens a lot, depending on how you feel about certain actors and stuff. And I'm able to look past it. Like, it works for me, but I can understand where you're coming from. All the same, I could also see him being more like the Patrick Warburton in the movie.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because Dempsey's like very charming.
Right.
And so I could see him being kind of the smug, almost overbearing security detail.
I could have seen that more, maybe, yeah. Although I did like Patrick Warburton in that role. I love him in that role.
Oh, yeah, Patrick Warburton, innocent. Patrick Warburton, very innocent in all of this. Patrick Warburton should be in everything. Patrick Warburton has the best scene in Men in Black 2.
He has the best scene of a lot of movies he's in. Not gonna lie.
That's true.
He's not. I wouldn't ever want him to lead a movie. Like, I can't see him as a leading role in a movie, per se.
Did you watch Rules of Engagement for 7 seasons on CBS?
I said in a movie. I don't know.
Oh, in a movie. Okay.
I can't see him leading a movie, like shouldering a movie. But I like him better as a support. I like him as a strong support. I like the hit and runs from him. He's more effective that way to me. And this, he's very effective.
I feel like I just admitted on air or on recording that I watched 7 seasons of Rules of Engagement on CBS.
You did.
Choices were just made.
Choices were made. You chose chaos. I did not respond to that. I was actually going to gloss over it for you, but you brought it back up to air. So now you have done this. You have done this yourself.
All right, Obi-Wan, calm down. Shit.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, Kincaid calls Gale, lets her know that Cotton was murdered and his girlfriend was murdered. Gale comes out to Hollywood, where they're filming Stab 3. Count that 1, 2, 3. And 3. That means that they were doing the little bit of the Friday the 13th, if you will, like very quick succession, making these movies, getting them out there. That means this third one had to be based on really like no event.
Right.
They're just kind of making it up as they're going.
Well, that's what it is. You notice that throughout the thing. They make a lot of meta jokes about that too. Yeah. At one point, they say Gale is the killer. At one point, they have 3 killers because they didn't want the scripts to leak. There's a lot of meta jokes they had about inside the universe of making the Scream 2. That was very successful. That's the one thing that was very successful about this film was that the comedy, even though it was too much, the meta comedy worked because it wasn't hitting you over the head with it. If you didn't really know the production, you might not get it. But if you were an inside Scream fan, then you know, and you laugh. So it works.
And I think the funny thing is that this is the 3rd film in the Stab franchise, and they've already recast the lead role of Sidney Prescott.
Good.
It is now played by Jennifer Jolie. No, I'm sorry. Jenna McCarthy's Sarah Darling.
Yes, it's Emily Mortimer who plays Angelina Tyler, who is...
That's it. I'm getting them all confused. I read the wrong.
No, that's the thing. Don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm going to take this from you here. This is where we actually go. Gale, we get to the set, and we get to meet all these characters, and they're all the same anyway. They are all the same anyway. That's why they're all confusing, because who cares about them? Nobody cares about anything. I mean, you got Jenny McCarthy, who's basically playing Jenny McCarthy, and she didn't really kill, and she's not a character. She's Jenny McCarthy to get killed. You got Emily Mortimer, Matt Kiesler, who plays Tom Prinz, and then we have the new Randy character, who is Tyson Fox, played by Dion Richmond.
Yeah.
And all these characters I could give a shit about, and they never really develop. They try to develop them. They try to make... Dion Richmond never actually gets development at all. He's supposed to be the new Randy. Nothing. Tom Prinz gets a little bit of development as, like, the brooding, hunky kind of guy, but that's about it. Angelina Tyler gets a little bit... Emily Mortimer and Angelina Tyler, because they do throw some shade her way. They do throw some red herring possibilities that way, and she acts a little crazy at some points. So she works to a degree, but it's very minimal. It's like it's a low bar set. The one who gets the most is Jennifer Jolie as Parker Posey as the Gail Weathers character. But I got to tell you something. I don't know if this is Parker's fault. I think she did what she was. She knew the assignment and played it well. I just didn't like the assignment.
Right. I
was annoyed from the get-go. Like, it just was overdone and like it was just done so much that like after the first couple times I'm kind of like, okay, I get the joke. Yeah, it's gonna be Gail and Gail the whole time. And
I'm gonna be honest, yeah, it's a choice and it feels like a script choice, and a part of it is Parker Posey like really leans in on it, and I like Parker Posey, but she has like a very specific character she's good at playing.
Right. Agreed.
And she really leans on it in this. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And she has like this fake relationship thing going on with Dewey, which is super uncomfortable. And like, it doesn't really work. And that's also the other thing is like, so now you have Dewey falling for a person who's playing Gail.
And that's just creepy.
Really.
It's creepy.
Right. Like, it's a weird character choice that I don't care for. Like, it's just odd. And so here we are. Courtney Cox shows up on the set of Stab 3. She sees Dewey for the first time. Dewey is the creative consultant on the film.
Right. And that's technical consultant or whatever it is.
Whatever it is. I think technical might be right, but it's like a creative consultant, essentially. Like, that's the basis of what he's doing. And what's weird about it is that, like, that's when we're introduced to this idea that there's a Gail and all these things. But now we've taken them back again. Like, again, talk about regressing characters. You brought it up earlier. They break up Dewey and Gail again. What are we doing? Why is this a thing?
To give tension and to give things, and it just doesn't work. It just gets annoying. It just gets annoying. I much would rather have had Dewey and Gail together, like a relationship that was like, long distance or whatever, and maybe Parker Posey trying to be method actress and move in on Dewey because she's trying to be Gail.
Yeah, that would have
been a different take at least, and it would have been better on the Gail-Dewey relationship, because that could have given that relationship tension without having to resort to this whole, oh, she's a bitch, oh, he's gonna call her out on being a bitch, oh, he's going to say something really kind of cutesy and funny and long-term to make you, oh, he's really kind of intelligent in some ways. But I digress.
It's not my
choice.
Yeah, and it's not my favorite. So we kind of go through all this, and this is where I got caught up. I jumped ahead on my notes, but Jenny McCarthy plays Sarah Darling, who we were just talking about, and she's murdered by Ghostface. She's like the first of...
Before we get there, one thing happens that I need to talk about.
Yeah, talk about it.
Jay and Silent Bob cameo.
Okay, I didn't want to bring it up, and not because I don't love Jay and Silent Bob.
Love Jay and Silent Bob. We love Jay and Silent Bob.
I love Kevin Smith. I love Jason Mewes. I love Jay and Silent Bob
so much.
Jay and Silent Bob reboot makes me cry.
Me too.
That I love Jay and Silent Bob. Like, I love these characters. I love the world. What the fuck are they doing?
Not a goddamn clue. It is the... I hate even talking bad about them because I feel the same way about them as you do. But to me, it signified exactly what I was talking about, is we're going to lean into the comedy more than the horror. This makes no sense. It's just hey, these are characters from that, from the Weinstein Company, who works with the Weinstein. They can do you a favor. They're going to pop in to say two things, make no sense at all that they're there, and they walk away. Why? It took me right out of the movie if I was ever in it to begin with.
And I'm thinking about it right now. It's always been a problem for me, just headcanon wise, of like, what are they doing out there? Because obviously, and now I'm thinking way too hard about it. And I apologize, listener, but like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back prove the point that they've never even been to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like the whole point is that they're going to Hollywood for the first time to stop a movie about themselves being made. And then they end up on the set of Scream 4.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So like it's just a weird thing, and like I know that the Scream 4 part of it is more of like an in-joke for the fact that they're in Scream 3.
Right.
But like it's just odd.
It doesn't work.
It's just such an odd choice, and you know that was mostly, if I remember correctly, I think it was Jason Mewes was like, I want to play the character again, and essentially they were like, do you want to make a cameo over in the movie? And they were like, yeah sure, we'll go do it. And that's where it came from.
I don't even blame them. There's like they got the call.
No, I don't.
They got the caller like, want to do this? Yeah, what the hell? I'll go shoot for a day.
It's just so odd.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird thing to be upset about, but like I shouldn't be like, oh my god, the Jay and Silent Bob canon of things, but like I kind of am like, well, the Jay and Silent Bob canon of everything. Like it's very clear that they've really never left much of Jersey outside of Dogma.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that I'm on a tear right now with that. It's a weird thing, man. It's always been a weird choice.
I'll be honest with you, that didn't bother me as much about that because I just skip it. I say it didn't happen. It's just an alternate. It's a variant. It's in multiverse. But what really gets me,
multiverse Jay and Silent Bob. All right, I'll give it. But multiverse Jay.
To me, it's a detriment to Scream 3. That's the problem I have. It's because it does no place in it. It takes us out, and it's a worthless thing. The film gains nothing from it.
And here's the thing. If you don't know who they are, then it's this random scene with two dudes, right? Who are just like mouthing off at Dale.
Right.
Okay, fine, fair enough. But it's just so odd because then if you know who they are, like we do, then you're immediately like, what are Jay and Silent Bob doing here?
Exactly.
It's all weird. Just weird.
Okay. Going back on, go to Jenny McCarthy now. Jenny McCarthy's death scene by Ghostface.
So, yeah, Jenna McCarthy is called into the director's office to have, like, a read-through for an upcoming scene, and she's getting mad because you didn't rewrite the script, did you? And we didn't bring up that the director is Roman Bridger, played by Scott Foley of Scrubs fame, because I'm a Scrubs fan. So I always think of him from Scrubs, and so she goes to his office, and she's murdered by Ghostface. But again, a little bit of that meta humor of her being upset that her character's lines may be being written and all of these things that are going on. And this is actually one of the best deaths in the movie.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It comes at the right time. Like, we needed a death at this point. We need something to spice up the movie at this point. It's made into a nice way to give, it gets shade thrown at Roman Bridger to a degree. Obviously setting him up for a red herring later, which one of the more successful red herrings, but I digress. Sure. But I like the fact that everything seems real. She's trying to call the studio for help. I don't know why she's not just calling the police. Instead of just calling, but maybe it's just inside line, outside line. Maybe I missed that. Doesn't she try to? I can't remember.
Yeah, she goes through like a couple of numbers, I feel like, to try to get through to the security.
Maybe that's what it is.
Unless I'm thinking of a different. But like she picks up the phone and she's trying to call, and it's like all these different numbers that it's like one of them I feel like is costuming or something,
right?
And then like there's just like a list of numbers.
Call 911.
The operator essentially.
Maybe it's an inside only phone. I don't. Either way, I digress about that as well. I'm saying I digress a lot because there's a lot of digression in this film.
Yeah, there is.
But it is a good death. It's a fun death. It's fun. It seems weird and creepy for me to say it's fun to see Jenny McCarthy die, but it's kind of like in that same celebrity cameo thing that when Drew Barrymore had a good death scene,
right?
And things like that nature. So this works in that way. She's never meant to be anything more than just she was definitely the most famous of the people in the cast. And for her to die first, it was almost like a meta joke to Drew Barrymore in the first film. Is like, this is the famous person, and we're going to kill her first. I kind of like that as an inside, like, almost like undetectable joke. It was like a joke if you looked into it. Like, okay, that's kind of amusing. I like that. So that one worked for me.
I don't disagree. And I do like the way that it sets up the red herring of it all and the idea of the director. Again, here's the problem we run into is that goddamn voice changer in the way that it's playing into everything. It's just super frustrating.
So frustrating.
And it's just used all the time. But, you know, so she gets offed very, very quickly. From there, that's when Sydney starts to really feel that she's learning what's happening. She sees that there might be a killer around doing these things. And then the killer, and this is a great scene, calls Sydney and begins to talk through the hotline.
Again.
And this is one, again, this is, the stuff with Sydney in this movie is really great. And this is one of those scenes. I like the build of this. The way that this works is so great. She picks up a call like it's a normal hotline thing. And as the conversation's going, you can tell she's getting more uncomfortable as she realizes something is wrong.
Right.
And something is happening. And that's when that turn happens.
I love that we get the trope. The famous, it's coming from inside the house type trope. When she looks at the line and it says the home phone, not the office phone. I know it's not exactly, it's just that's on the home line. That's, they know the number. But that right there is like, okay, this is good. This is where that moment of terror strikes in, and that's where Craven does the tone of things perfectly, as he does.
Oh, it's so good. It works so well. The tension is great. And that, to me, is like some of where the movie peaks at its best. Because I think that the tension of what it's doing with Sydney is so palpable. Because I'm buying into, what if the killer's in the house already? Like, they clearly knew the number. What if they know where this is at? And there's something about that that's just so good, that works so well.
Agreed. 100%. I loved everything about this part. And again, you said it like you said before. Sydney works, and every time Sydney's on screen, it works better. So this is what we needed more of. Unfortunately, we don't get that, because then we go to the next scene, which is now Rowan Bridger was brought in because of the calls made to the studio and how Jenny McCarthy was brought into the studio. He was released. But then we have this like house. Everybody goes over to the, I forget whose house, was it Parker Posey's house, I think, Julie's house, or Jennifer Jolie's house. So everybody goes there. This whole sequence, I just didn't like any of the sequence. I'll be honest with you. This whole thing threw me out. Like, this is where that comedy bit came in. Because, first of all, I didn't care about half the characters there already. And Dewey and Gale were kind of annoying me a little bit anyway. So there was nothing for me to gain there, except for Patrick Warburton. And Patrick Warburton gets killed. And that sparks off the rest of it. This whole, like, the fax comes in, and they're reading off the scripts. And I'm like, this wants to be clever, but it just coming across as, God, please kill me now.
It's long.
That's exactly
That's the problem. Is this scene feels very long, and it just, this movie has a pacing problem. It lets a lot of these scenes play too long the entire time. And so essentially they're there because the production is now in turmoil with the fact that one of the actresses is murdered. And they're trying to figure out what's going to come next. Ghostface starts to hound them through a fax machine. That's a new one.
That's a choice.
And then Ghostface uses a gas leak, causes an explosion in the house, kills Tom Prinz, who is the pretty boy actor, and kills Patrick Warburton as well, which is
disastrous.
You know, a bummer. I could have used more Patrick Warburton in this.
I could have cared less about Tom's death. I was like, who's that? Oh, yeah, that's that guy. I don't care. I could care less.
He has all of like 3 scenes in this movie.
Not great. He slept with Angelina, I think, or didn't sleep with Angelina. And I don't know. It was just, there was a lot of sleeping with the get ahead jokes, like we said before, and it was creepy. And I just
this whole sequence, honestly, is kind of like, they definitely start to allude to that actresses and like them getting around and getting jobs was like sleeping with people, and they talk about that a lot. And again, it feels like they're trying to openly shame Hollywood, but it also just comes. It's just.
I don't think they're even shaming it. I think the part of the problem is, I think that's just like they're basically saying, that's what Hollywood is. That's how Hollywood is. Y'all know it. You're all okay with it though, because we've always been okay with it. It's never been like a big thing until we started realizing it was much more of a big thing.
Yeah, it's a weird choice. There's a lot of that conversation that doesn't gel, and then there's like this back and forth on the Dewey with the Gales, and
Yep.
again, I don't like the Dewey and Gale.
I hate it.
That's what drives me the most crazy about all this, is that like I just want Dewey and Gale to be happy. And all of us just want Dewey and Gale to be happy, and every time that they break them up, it's just super annoying.
Exactly. I like Dewey as a character. I like Gale as a character. I think they're fun. They're engaging to watch. But I get tired of the nonsense. It's not worth watching anymore. It just gets annoying. Like, all right, move on. It gets away of what's going on. That's why it's 2 hours long. We don't need you guys to fight back together. You can be a bickering couple without that kind of level of fight. I don't know.
Yeah. So we move on from this, and Sydney shows up in Los Angeles.
Right. The detectives are pushing for a location first. There's actually a good scene between Kincaid and Dewey. They're trying to because Kincaid's trying to get him to get her talk. He's being very loyal, very much in his character. But then Sydney shows up, and there's the reuniting with Dewey, which is great. Their reuniting scene is great. Yes. It felt like it was earned. I felt like that was a well done scene like that. Even though it was only a couple of years later, it still felt like, oh, great, it's good to see them together again.
No, totally. And this scene's great. It works really well. And again, their chemistry has always been really fantastic. Like, David Arquette and Neve Campbell are really fun together. And so just seeing them, it brings a smile to your face. And you realize that we're so far into the movie already, and this is the first time they're seeing each other. It takes so long to get here, which was good for Sydney, but bad for the rest of the movie.
I mean, that's part of the problem. Like I said, if Sydney was the best part of the movie, and they're limited her for such a long time. And even after she gets there, they're limited because she sits at the desk for a long time too. And it's like,
well, they also have that like weird. I didn't even talk about it, but there's like that weird dream sequence.
Oh, right.
That Sydney has. That like that is. I hate the dream.
Me too.
Because it feels terribly out of place for what Scream is. Like, none of the Scream movies have had to this point, and still even after, as far as I'm aware, obviously, I have not seen Scream 5, but like that dream sequence is so odd,
right? And
feels so out of place.
They have the mother coming back in the dream sequence before any of the other stuff comes up. Like, we don't even know that like she's involved really in a way. I mean, I guess when he calls her, he says something about killing her mother, but like it just seemed like very convenient for me to push that along.
And it's just odd. It's just an odd sequence. Like, I just don't love it. So Martha Meeks shows up, Randy Meeks' sister, and we learned that Randy has very conveniently made a videotape of himself talking to Sydney, Dewey, and anyone else who is watching, in case that this is the rules for a trilogy.
Right. I gotta say, I first hated it. Like, I first heard about it, I was like, oh, this fucking sucks. And the only reason I said it sucks is because it just meant that was the only scene we're going to get Randy in. That's the only reason I hated it. Like, given that they had written themselves into a corner with this, I think this is probably a fun, good, in-character way for him to come back. Because I totally could have seen Randy doing this, realizing he lost his virginity to the girl at the video store. Oh, shit, I'm going to die. I could die now. And then he goes, I gotta give him the rules for the trilogy. You knew it had to happen somehow. I'm glad they did it the way they did it, because it still made for a good, solid scene, even if it leaves you wanting more, even if it leaves you cursing Scream 2 even more at the end of it.
I think that this is one of the better scenes in the movie. Again,
it felt Scream.
To your point, like Scream. It feels like Scream. It feels like a slap in the face, though, because it makes you just mad at Scream 2 all over again, kind of to your point. Like, God damn it, here we are again. Like, this just happened. But for the most part, I actually think it works. Like, I think it's clever enough that it's fun. Yeah. It gives you this, like, nostalgic feel for Randy and the things that he did, and just, like, his character's so good.
You said it last week. Yesterday. Because he's going to be coming out on a daily basis.
Whatever. In the previous
episode. You said this in the previous episode that he is us to a degree. And like, so we watch this through him. And so we see ourselves back on screen for, a minute, 2 minutes and a half. And you're like, I want more. I want to be back on with them.
you also realize, like, Jamie Kennedy is just such a cracker barrel of energy. Right. Like, dude is just so electric that every time he's on screen as this character. I can't say that about all of his performances, but like as Randy, it's so
he
good.
caught lightning in a bottle, and his energy fuels Scream and Scream 2. And it's noticeably, that energy is noticeably missing in Scream 3.
Yeah. I think Scream 4 does it a little bit better, but Scream 4 also arguably has the best cast of characters outside of the first one, and that's the reason that movie works as well as it does. I think it's the thing that I don't feel about these movies. 2 and 3 just have expendable casts.
Yeah, very much so.
Scream 4 did the right thing of getting a lot of up-and-coming and hot actresses and actors at the time that you cared about, and 2 and 3 tried, but it never lands in the same way.
Right. Even with, like, 2 even had some good casting choices, but they just didn't write them well. I mean, it still had Timothy Olyphant. Yeah. Still has O'Connell, who has some moments.
Sarah Michelle
Gellar, but just doesn't pull. Unfortunately, here they have Johnny McCarthy, who is the Sarah Michelle Gellar and Drew Barrymore, but everybody else is not anybody who really does a whole lot.
Parker Posey had You've Got Mail the year before.
Yeah.
So like Parker Posey has at least You've Got Mail,
right.
And she had Dazed and Confused for like a couple of scenes, right. If you knew Dazed and Confused, but like, yeah, you're 100% right. For the most part, like no one's talking about Emily Mortimer around this time.
Matt Kiesler, who? Huh?
Exactly.
I remember Tyson's name. Dion Richmond, who?
Yeah, I don't mean to be a jerk about that. It's
true.
Just kind of true. Like, I mean, look, I brought it up earlier. As much as I might like Scott Foley as Roman, Scott Foley's not necessarily a name. Like, he's in a handful of episodes of Scrubs that I love, and he's done a couple of other things, but like Scrubs was it for me, and that's after this movie. Although Lance Hendrickson is in this, he's the head of the
I actually had that note down that Lance Hendrickson shows more charisma, more energy in his couple of sequences, his small couple of sequences. I mean, I shouldn't even say energy because he's not very energetic, but he has something about him when he's on screen and you notice him and you want to know more about his character. That's just because he's Lance Hendrickson.
Yeah, I mean, Lance Hendrickson just exudes a very specific sort of charisma. And I've always liked him for that. There's a reason I've always liked him. There's a reason that we talk about the fact that he's in Terminator and Alien and Predators and like, or not Predators, but Predator 2.
Right.
No, Alien versus Predator.
Right.
It was a Predator movie and it's Alien versus Predator. I got that.
You got there. I was helping you along, letting you go. You got it.
Yeah. But dude is such a great actor. Pumpkinhead. Like, we don't talk about Pumpkinhead nearly enough. I've always liked Lance Hendrickson. Yeah. So it's always fun to see him in something like this. And here's where the movie starts to finally get back on track a little bit, because now we definitely have Sydney much more front and center. Right? After everything happens, everyone is going to a birthday party for...
Oh, wait. I want one more thing I want to do first before we get there. Oh, okay. This is a cameo that works. The Gales go to the archives and see Carrie Fisher.
The Gales
works because Carrie Fisher helped write her dialogue, first of all, which she always does.
It works. It
works. It's a fun scene. I actually don't care about the Gale thing at this point. So I'm watching our princess. So I don't want to call her Princess Leia because that's all, like saying that's all she was, but she's always our princess. And I love that she jokes about that. And that was actually the one sex joke that actually worked with me a little bit, because trying to picture George Lucas trying to be that way just is funny, because George Lucas is just that guy that's just, you can't imagine him ever being a Weinstein type anyway. So the joke there works because it's not creepy, because it's funny, because it's fucking George Lucas you're talking about. And the rest of it is just her, her being Carrie Fisher. And she's such a I can't even say enough about her.
She's Carrie Fisher, dude. Like that's all you got to say. She's exactly. Carrie Fisher. Like, this scene is great. She is so good. The Gales are so good in this sequence. Courtney Cox and Parker Posey playing off of Carrie Fisher are so great. I love this scene, and it is one of the best scenes in the movie. Yep. I'm really glad that you stopped me and we got to talk about it a little bit. And there's a lot of revealing information that comes out of this sequence too. And the big thing that we learn, and we should have probably talked about this, is that it turns out Sydney's mother was an actress.
Right. Maureen Prescott she left Woodsboro before marrying Sydney's father. Had a little wild side life a little bit, it seems, and went out and did some Hollywood things and appeared in some low-budget horror films, which, that's good for us. We love low-budget horror films. And that's where we discovered that. We discovered that somehow is a key to what's going on, because the killer keeps leaving those headshots and from those set pieces at the murders.
Yeah, and that is actually one of the better. I liked that better than the idea that the names of the characters or the names of the victims in Scream 2 were the same. I liked this kind of the pictures being left behind, and it's like, who is this woman? Well, why does it look like Maureen Prescott? Oh, it is Maureen Prescott, but she was like an actress with a different name, and I kind of love that. And I liked this idea that she was around the studio and like she has this history on the studio. And again, it starts to talk about like the very seedy underbelly of Hollywood of like, she basically slept around a lot to try to get parts, and like the system basically chewed her up and spit her out.
That makes sense.
Like that's kind of the play. Like that's what they're saying. It's again, it feels like it's supposed to be a slap in the face to Hollywood, but the big problem is I don't feel like it nearly hits it enough. It's a great. I'm glad they bring it up. I'm glad that it's focused on. I wish it had hit a little harder. Right. But the scene is great. Carrie Fisher makes same thing, makes a joke that she tried out for the role of Princess Leia, lost it to the woman who slept with George Lucas. Because she has a picture of Carrie Fisher in the office that they make a joke about. Like, dude, it's something. This is one of the best meta, funny, humorous jokes that you could have possibly asked for in this movie. God, I fucking miss.
I do miss Carrie Fisher. It's the anniversary of her death recently, and I'm just like, we lost her too soon.
I know, man.
I digress. Okay, but all right, now we will go to the party.
The mansion.
No, you know what? Actually, Sydney also gets to. This is where we get to see Sydney visiting home. She gets attacked at her her set of.
Oh yes, house. The which is a great sequence.
When she comes in and sees the set, I feel that with her. I'm like, because I can imagine like going and seeing a set recreation of my house, and it looks like my house. And
it's like, that is my house.
Like, that's weird.
That is 100% my house.
And there's this great moment where she's in her bedroom, and you're hearing her like remembering Scream 1 or whatever, the lines from Scream 1, which is like a little bit. It was a little weird only because like it felt like she's having these like weird, almost positive memories about the guy who tried to kill her. But at the same time, I don't know what else they would have done that would have made sense, as far as because we didn't get to spend a lot of time with her in her home in a non-scary situation.
I'm not sure they're positive so much as we're just having memories, and the only memories we have of Sydney in that room are
that. Exactly, the only memories we have is that exactly. So
yeah, they could have probably recorded new dialogue if they had wanted to, but that's fine.
I mean, they did have Sydney's father back, so they could have had like more scenes between her and her father or something. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way.
No, it works. It's fun, and the sequence with her and Ghostface is really great, because it gives you a flavor of the original movie.
Exactly. It's like that little tease of it. You want to nostalgia.
Yeah, it makes you remember, like, oh shit, we definitely love these movies because it take you back to that moment. It was like, oh yeah, I remember loving this because I remember seeing her be chased by a ghost face in a house like this. Like, not this particular house, obviously, but like,
it was only 4 years ago at this point. Our nostalgia tick is like 4 years old at this point, but it still worked.
Which is, again, it's kind of funny that this movie is 100% like a legacy sequel in the very broadest sense, but it was 2 years after the second movie and like 4 years overall. Strange
how it worked, but it does.
So strange, right? Like, I can't think of it any other way. It 100% is like the blueprint for a lot of legacy sequels, just maybe not as strong.
Yeah, exactly. and it's not as effective generally because there's not enough time was in between the first film and the third film. Part of it works, but part of it doesn't. It would have worked. I wonder if this film had come out when Scream 4 came out, if it would have been any more successful in ticking those boxes a little better.
I always wonder that. That's the conversation I always think about, like, when it comes to Indiana Jones. Like, a perfect example of that is if Crystal Skull had come out instead of Last Crusade, would it have been nearly as volatile for the fan base?
I don't know.
Or would they have accepted it? It's the same idea, right? Because in that time, would it have felt as different? Because you're not 14 years away from the movie, you're 3 years away from the movie.
That's a great conversation. Huh?
Scream would be the opposite.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? It would almost be like if they had waited longer, how would people have reacted to it? Because you're playing the legacy sequel bit. So just things to think about. Like, I think about that a lot. Like, if you had sat down and looked at any of these, the prequel movies, had the prequels come out much sooner, I don't think that there would have been that same volatile reaction. So actually, to your point, I think people would have been more upset about Scream.
Potentially.
Because it seems like until recently, legacy sequels were looked down upon pretty heavily.
I wonder when that changed.
Like, Tron Legacy and Mad Max Fury Road were the exceptions, and even Fury Road is more of a reboot.
Yeah. And Tron Legacy wasn't as successful, like, as far as overall to the overall audience. I love it. You love it.
I mean, I think it's a top movie of all time, but that's beside the point.
I don't know if I could go that far, but I do love it a lot. But yeah.
I would say it's it's at least in the top 200 movies of all time.
I'll have to look back. And see. I definitely loved it. I don't know if I can say that, but I definitely loved it. But we are in the minority, though.
And I get it. I mean, it made not enough to do another movie, but now it looks like another movie's happening. So who knows? We're talking about Tron for some reason.
Maybe we'll get there someday.
And I hope that you guys enjoy we do this. We like start to talk. I like it because we go up and then we dovetail down into these like random little
sidebars.
Tangents. The sidebars are important, man, because it gives us personality.
Agreed. And we need help with that because we're two mediocre white dudes.
Exactly. We lack very little flavor.
We use salt and pepper. That's who we are. Not salt and pepper. We are salt and pepper.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
All right. So
do it.
We do have one more thing before we get to the party. We do have the Lance Henriksen moment. Talk about the casting couch and more. Then we have a scene with Dempsey and Sydney, where they have the whole thing. They start talking about films. We start learning more about Kincaid, and it gets to be that big red herring more because he works on Hollywood movies. But this is one of my worst moments in the film, and it was Sydney turning to Dempsey. I actually noted down one of the worst line deliveries of the entire film. She actually does the callback and says, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And Dempsey comes in, "My life." I legitimately was like, this fucking guy. I fucking hate this guy. And I know I know I have it out for Patrick Dempsey, but it was legitimately, I wrote down my least favorite line delivery in the whole film. And there's a lot of bad line deliveries by some people in this fucking movie.
I kind of liked his line delivery in this. I'm going to be honest with you. Because it's so cheesy and so dumb and so over the top, but the rest of this movie is too. So why am I upset that this dude is like, my life is the horror movie that I hate more than anything? I notice it every time I watch it, and I'm just like, Dempsey's trying so hard to like chew the scenery. I'm just
if there was a note of irony, if there's a note of like self-awareness in there, I would let it go. But he's so legitimately trying in this movie, and I don't know. Okay, you could love it. I love that you love it.
Hey man, I'm not gonna fucking judge you. Are you kidding me? I railed against the shit about Cotton earlier, and I'm pretty sure that we lost most of the audience while I was doing it.
If you're still here, we love you.
I mean, if you're not here,
fuck you.
You don't.
If you're not here, fuck you. I don't care.
I mean, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I love all of you right now listening. You're my favorite people. And you know what my favorite scary movie is?
Your life. All right. Let's get to the birthday party.
All right.
We're hitting the final stretch here at this point. Okay.
And the audience is saying, "Thank God to us for getting to
Thank
the final
God.
stretch."
We are not going to go 2 hours like this movie did. Thank God. We're going to hit approximately what the movie probably should have hit. $1.90.
Are you sure about that? Aren't we at like 90 minutes?
We are at an hour and 20 right now. So
okay. Yeah,
maybe a little bit more, but all right. So we're at Roman's birthday party. And the whole setup, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I see we're going to the final act now. And right away, they decide to split up to go look for this mythical screening room. Of course, it makes sense.
Yeah, a screening room. And this is inside
Lance
the
Hendrickson's
house of
right.
Hendrickson, by the way. Yeah, he's having everyone come over for this birthday party for
right.
Roman. And apparently he has this, legendary screening room that they've decided that they must go find. Everyone must find the legendary
screening hidden room. And, honestly, if I heard about a hidden room, I would like to find it because I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. If I ever build a house,
you know what?
Totally having a magic room.
It depends. If it's a screening room, sure, I might go looking for it. If it's a sex dungeon, I might go looking for it. It depends on the room, because if someone tells me there's a torture chamber, I'm probably not going to go looking for the fucking secret.
Yeah, that's true. If there's like a secret, nursery, I'm not going to go looking for it. I don't really care that much. There's a secret.
Yeah, or like a secret cult lair.
Yeah,
Fuck no, I'm going the other direction. Yeah, I've been playing way too much of the Guardians of the Galaxy game recently. Cults, not cool.
Yeah, secret dungeon, secret wizard's dungeon. Yeah, not going to go that either. But a screening room.
I don't know. Wizard's dungeon, I might.
You might.
Wizard's dungeon, I might.
Depending on the wizard.
Is there a skull named Bob?
In that case, I'm there with you, and we're definitely going to do it.
Exactly. If you've never read the Dresden Files series, now is a perfect time to read the Dresden Files series, kids.
Actually, wait. You can wait till after this episode's over, then go start.
No. They can pause us. They can come back to it. I mean, it's only 20
That's
minutes.
True. We'll be here. Pause it. We'll wait.
We'll be here. Yeah, we'll wait. And if you don't, that's fine too. I mean, there's actually some great audio dramas you can listen to. The audiobooks read by the dude from
and Angel. God, I can't remember his name right now.
Angel and
Smallville.
Because he was in. Yeah, I can see him.
Brainiac. God, all right, now I got to look him up.
He played Spike. He played Spike. I know that.
James Marsden or no?
It's Marsters.
James Marsters. That's it. That's
Marsters. I was right.
I think
I was right.
You were right.
Anyway, you should read the Dresden Files as we continue to be like, oh my God, we have to talk about the third act of this movie. And I'm going to be honest, guys. Not the biggest fan of this third act.
No, me either. I'll be honest with you. Nothing about this really works for me.
It's not great.
I'm not going to lie.
No. Well, have you ever lied to me before? I don't think you have, so I think we're fine.
No, I haven't.
He stops.
That you know of.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's where we're
going to stay.
So this whole thing is they go split off, and Gale discovers Roman's dead body.
Right. Which is another attempt to do a red herring. And did you buy it? Did you buy it? That's what I want to know. Did you buy that he was dead at this point?
No, absolutely.
In fact, I agree. In fact, when I saw that dead body, I went, "Oh, there's our killer."
Yeah. And to be honest, Roman really has not had a ton to do through this movie. And so the moment that happened, the first time I ever saw it, I went, oh, God damn it, Roman's going to be the killer. And then it was, I need to know the motivation. Yep. And his motivation doesn't get a lot better, to be honest with you, which makes this all the
Which I feel like it could have landed. On paper, because what they did with Maureen Prescott.
Right, on paper.
It sounds good and it makes good. But Scott Foley cannot pull it off. At all.
And I like Scott Foley.
I know, me too. And I think I find it funny, they almost don't. Maybe I missed this. I watched it and I got a little. In the background at a point. It almost feels like there was a missed opportunity to have Lance Hendrickson be the father.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever
right?
brought up.
He ends up killing him anyway. But I feel like that actually could have made it work even better. Because you got someone like Lance Hendrickson, use him more. And that could have been a better way to do it, potentially. Maybe that was the two killers. They could have both been the killer for some reason. I don't know. I'm kind of pontificating now. But that's why I kind of felt like they were trying to say at one point, but then they never said. So like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. So either way,
they never really they never come out and say most of it.
Right.
That again, the biggest problem with a lot of this movie is that there's a lot of it stands up to say something and then backs off the thing that it's saying. And I know that a part of that is because obvious people produce this movie, and that is a problem.
Right.
But I wish it had gone harder, and this is not it's really not their fault. What are they going to do?
At this point, this is way before any kind of successful movement,
litigation,
motivation, everything else.
Yeah,
just would have fallen on deaf ears. And honestly speaking, they produced this; they would have cut it out anyway.
Right, exactly, because Harvey Scissorhands was a real known nickname for Harvey.
Yep.
Back in the day.
100%.
Man, fuck Harvey Weinstein. Basically, they're all going through the house. Someone starts kind of murdering people one by one. And there is a great scene, though, in this with a hallway behind the door, or behind the glass.
Yes, that worked well.
That I really like. That one was really great, where they're pounding on the glass and they're trying to get attention, and that's very cool. I think that Craven directed that really well.
A little reminiscent of Scream 2, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very reminiscent of Scream 2.
And same people involved, except for Gail and Dewey are actually together this time.
Yeah, and so that was kind of fun, and I like the idea behind it, though. But they actually shoot the glass out, and that works really well. For the most part, again, I kind of like them walking through the house, and I like seeing the things, but the problem is I still don't care about any of the characters, ultimately. And it feels like it's kind of just padding to get to this moment of the reveal about Roman. Right.
Tyson dies, I could care less. Angelina dies. I mean, she revealed herself to be kind of a little bit of an asshole. Calls them both second-rate celebrities and stuff like that, and then is lead, and then she gets killed. So I guess I almost feel like that was done just to go, oh yeah, we want to make you cheer her death in a way. But it just... Yeah,
because she also shouldn't be playing Sydney if she acts like that, because Sydney's a very different person.
Right, exactly. But then we get Kincaid coming through. Sydney and Kincaid know the file. That's right, the file. That was the best part of Kincaid's... making Kincaid the possibility of being the killer when Sydney finds the file that we talked about. It's a great setup. Craven does a really good job setting up Kincaid as the killer. And I almost feel like they're better.
They really do. I mean, I buy into the Kincaid of it all, to be honest with you. I can see where it's going with that. He's the ultimate red herring in the movie, and it works because, again, I think, unlike you, I like Patrick Dempsey in the role, so you don't want to believe it, but he plays it well enough that I buy into the red herring.
I almost think if Patrick Dempsey was the killer, I might have forgiven him everything else, even the bad line reading.
You know what? Honestly, I don't disagree with you.
But we're neither here than there. We get Scott Foley, and it's the reveal time. I will say this real quick before the reveal. I do like that they do get Sydney and him alone for the reveal. That makes sense to me. Yes. And makes its potential of being a great ending with the two of them doing that. But we get the reveal, and Scott Foley is Sydney's brother. Half brother. That's it, because she went out there, had the fling in Hollywood, or whatever happened in Hollywood, and he came out of it. She abandoned him and went home. And basically makes Maureen Prescott into another bit of a character. It seems like the whole Scream franchise wants us to think that she is bad. They slut shame her. They talk shit about her. I mean, she cheats on Sydney's dad in the beginning. Now they're making her abandon their brother and half brother after.
Well, not just abandon. Then he shows up. He tries to reunite with her, and she basically shuts him out,
denies him,
and denies all of it. And then, for whatever reason, Roman contacts Billy Loomis and shows the footage of her meeting up with his dad to him, and that's what leads to Loomis deciding to kill her. It becomes so convoluted.
I hated that.
And this is my problem. I don't like the weird retconning that he is the one who is ultimately the reason that...
You want to know what it is? It's the Spider-Man 3 thing at first. It's the making Sandman the killer of Uncle Ben, which I hated that too.
Yes.
It's like this weird retcon. Yes. And Jamie Kennedy says it. That's the worst part about it. Jamie Kennedy in Randy says it during his trilogy rules, that there's like a something you believe, it's like a retcon, something in the past. He's telling us this is going to happen. So we almost have to see it coming, but it's just so convoluted, and it does not work at all.
It becomes... And look, here's the thing, is to a point, I understand why his character would feel the way he does. Roman has every right to be angry and betrayed and pissed off. But then for that, like, I don't know. And then, like, then he gets mad at Sidney because he thinks that Sidney got famous for all of this. And that's why he decides to try to kill Sidney. He wants to frame her for all these murders on the Stab films. What? Like, you have to understand, dude, you're the one who did all this to her. And that goes to all the stuff that we've talked about in these movies, is these people wanting to be famous off of them. Right? Roman honestly could have still been famous if he had just kept making the Stab movies, and he should have just kept it himself.
Him effing up the Stab movies actually makes it worse on him. He could have done the Stab movie. He even says at one point, the studio promised him a movie if he did the horror movie. He was already on the trajectory up.
Right. It's just so weird, man. Like, I don't love it. Sidney and Roman have a big fight. Roman shoots Sidney. And of course, you know, we're led to believe something happens, but then Sidney pops up and she shoots Roman a bunch of times. And then Dewey shows up with Gale.
Oh,
and of course, one more
God,
time,
let me interject. I hated the idea, like, the thing that annoyed me about this whole sequence is you keep hearing Dewey and Gale, we gotta find a way in. We gotta find a way. Like, it just gets annoying. Like, I mean, like, I don't know, like, just hearing them over and over again. It's like,
I don't agree.
And like, oh, and then he like shots the power down by, like, why does he even think of that? It seems like it's such a weird like thing. Like, we're gonna shut the power down now, and then he shoots her. Dewey's shooting the guy, Roman, and he has to be told after 3 movies to shoot the guy in the head. He's a cop, or was a cop. He shoots the guy in the chest 6 times. The guy's still going forward. You shoot the guy in the head. You don't need to be told to shoot the guy in the head at this point.
And you'd think he would have known that from the previous.
Exactly. That's what I said. We're in the 3rd movie now. You've lived through this twice, Dewey. Twice.
And here's the other thing. Dewey getting... So, I get the reasoning, because Gale gets the kill shot, essentially, in the first movie, right? Sidney gets it in the 2nd, and Dewey gets it in the 3rd.
Right.
I get it. Sidney should really be the one who kills her half-brother in this, right?
Really should have been. 100%.
Like, really, it should be Sidney killing this dude. After everything he did, after he's the reason her mother is dead, after he's the reason for everything that's happened, and Sidney doesn't get the kill shot? I know that's a weird thing to fixate on. Like, I don't want Sidney to murder people, but, like, also...
That's the character arc.
Sidney should really fucking murder this
That's
dude.
the character arc right there. I don't know. I digress, but...
and each one of these movies has gotten, like, weirdly... It's all connected to Marine. And it's really frustrating because it makes you hate the character, like you said. And that really shouldn't be what they're trying to do, but they make you hate Marine Prescott.
Right.
It seems real backwards.
There's a lot of just issues with it, the way it goes down. But
look, here's what I'll say. I get the point of the 3rd act. I get the swing it's taking. I just think that the biggest problem is that it's never committed to any of it. And in my mind, it just feels like a twist for the sake of a twist, right?
Right.
Like, Roman being the killer would have been one thing.
Right.
why did it have to be Roman was the half brother that was like, and even if it was just Roman was the half brother, fine. But like, it's once you get into this stuff with Loomis and with Marine and like all of it just becomes so much.
100,000%. Like I was about to say, I was actually about to say the same thing. I didn't care. The half brother thing was kind of like, okay, that's kind of cool. They set it up before. They set it up with the whole angle of her being in Hollywood. They made sense, but you don't have to go too far with it. You just go too far with it, and it kills any momentum you have. It vilifies someone who's already been vilified enough. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work for me.
And here's the thing, like, so you vilified her, but also then you tried to turn that vilification around by being like, well, really, she screwed up because of what happened to her in Hollywood. But you still then tripled down on that. Well, actually, she also still did all the stuff where she was cheating. So you go back to it.
Double down on it at this point.
Scream 3 makes some weird choices, but the stuff with Roman might be the weirdest. And I think you're right. I think Scott Foley is one of the biggest problems, and I like Scott Foley. Again, I think he's very, very talented. But I just don't buy his character work in this, and I don't buy that what he's doing, and I think he's on another plane of existence with his performance.
Yes. It's a planet of no charisma in this movie. At all.
No charisma, but also trying to almost be over the
top. That's what I mean. He doesn't have that to do the over the top part.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you're right. 100%. It's weird. It's fucking weird, dude. Like, I think he thinks he's Al Pacino.
That would have worked somehow.
I would have watched that. I would have watched Al Pacino as Scott Foley's character.
I don't care if that math doesn't work out.
Look, I don't care either. Do any... I just... It's so weird. It's so weird. And again, I think now, in like hindsight, as we've talked about it, the idea of multiple killers being involved that were like Woodsboro heads makes way more sense.
Agreed.
And I would have bought into that even more then, right? Because then they would have known about Maureen's past. They would have known that she was an actress. They would have known... Like, I get that.
Yeah, I agree.
I get that so much more.
Fully agree. All right, so we get out of the way. We get out of the house. We go back to the new happy life that Sydney leaves in this place with Patrick Dempsey. Gail and Dewey get together. They get married. It's the worst proposal of history, or they get hitched at it, rather. We know it's not going to work out, but let's see if we're wrong. Okay. I think it would be a great line if I wasn't so annoyed by the characters' relationships. I think that's what it is.
I'll say this, though. I think it's adorable that he comes out with her book and he's like, will you sign this for me? I think that is
again,
it's just so
it would have worked if I wasn't annoyed by them at that point so much.
No, that's fair. I get it. I just hate that we regressed with them, but I'm glad that it comes around because again, I just want them to be happy. So that scene works for me.
That's fine. Okay. I get that too. I mean, I wanted to like it, so I get why you like it. But the one last thing I don't like, I hate it, in fact, is this is a rarity of Wes Craven mistake, I think. He makes this choice to show you that Sydney's moved on. And she leaves the gate open. They go to start having the movie. The door like kind of pops open, wide open, and she looks at it for a second and then leaves it open and goes watching the movie. Because she's moved on and she's safe now and all this stuff. I'm kind of like, there's moving on and there's just stupidity. I don't leave my door open. I don't want bugs coming in, for Christ's sake.
Look, yeah, like I might leave my back door open to let the dogs go in and out.
Right, I get that to a degree, maybe, but like it was done so hand-handedly. Like, we're gonna show you that Sydney's moved on and is okay. Like, it was just so stupid. It was a stupid way to end it.
Look, I get it. I get the point. I know what they're doing. It's fun.
Yeah.
I like this idea that they're all like this little happy kind of dysfunctional family now, and Kincaid is there, and they're gonna watch the movie together, and like all that works. I still want to know why Kincaid is there, and then just I mean, this is more for the next movie, but like, what the hell happened to Kincaid?
Grey's Anatomy. I think is what happened to Grey's. But, well, that is it. Now there's only one thing left to do, my friend. That is to give it your rating. A rating.
All right.
And yeah, let's just a reminder.
All right.
You gave Scream out of 11 because we turned it up to 11 here, folks.
Right.
Originally, you had Scream 1 at a perfect 11. And you had Scream 2 at 7.5.
Okay. This is hard because it sounds like I'm so hard on these movies, but like, I actually enjoy them. I need to be a little bit more like, I enjoy these. Don't worry, guys. I gush over Scream 4. You're going to have a good time listening to me on that. I promise. So, all that being said, I think I have to land at like 5.7.
5.75. Okay. Interesting you're going with the 0.75. I didn't know we were doing that. I thought we were just doing halves.
I don't know. I made a guess. If I have to go a half, I'll go 5.5. I just...
If you want, I think we should let's just make this determination now. What is our
on air where everyone can hear it?
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with doing it on air. Let them hear. Maybe they'll have if you want to let us know what you think. I'm happy to hear. Should we go down to 0.25, 0.5, 0.75? Is that all? We're not going to start going like 5.72 or.
I was just keeping it at like 0.75.
Okay, look, I will allow that then. We'll allow 5.25.
I'm just gonna say I'm gonna save you the hassle. We're going 5.
Okay, so we're only doing halves. That's the one we do.
We're only gonna.
Okay, so 5.5.
I'm gonna save you the hassle.
It's interesting, all right? Because I went up and I remember it's funny. I started this podcast today, this episode, and I was saying how much I liked it better than I had liked last time, and yet I did proceed to shit on over most of it anyway. So
we're doing a very good job at that, by the way.
I initially had this like before I rewatched it. I had it about like I initially did it out of 5, so I think I had it like a 1.5 out of 5. So maybe a 2.5 out of 10, 3 out of 10. I will up it, but not a whole lot. I'm gonna go at a 4.5.
Wow. You and I are always within like a point.
Yeah.
Just about.
You haven't had any real diversions yet. I'm interested to see if that's ever going to happen because we do share a brain to a degree. But I got to feel like there's going to be
not a joke.
It is true. But I have a feeling that there's going to be one movie sometime where you're going to give it like a 10 and I'm going to give it a 2. And I can't wait for that to happen because I just can't wait for that discussion to happen. But it is not this day.
Oh, man.
We're pretty close on this one.
No, it is not the day. Like, this is exactly like a 50% shot for me. That was why I did it, right? Like,
I get that.
11, 5.5, I'm going 50%. Like, 50% of this movie, I like. But the other 50%, not a fan. So it felt like the fair shake, and I think that you're kind of in the same place.
Yeah.
There's more about it that I'm just so indifferent when this is all said and done, and that's super frustrating for a trilogy capper.
It's very frustrating for a climate for what's supposed to be the finishing chapter of a saga. You think it's over, you think it should end with a big bang, and it just kind of ends with a whimper. At the end of the day, so our average now is 11 for Scream, 7 for Scream 2, and 5 for Scream 3. I can't wait to see what we do for Scream 4. I think that's another reason why I put it at 4.5, since I had a 6.5 for Scream 2, a 4.5 for Scream 3. I kind of have this feeling I do remember liking Scream 4 better than liking Scream 3. So I want to have that room between, because I don't know if it's going to top Scream 2 for me. I'm interested to see if Scream 4 can top Scream 2 for me this time through. Very interested.
I'm very excited for you to watch Scream 4 because I love Scream 4 so much. So I just have such a huge spot in my heart for it, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. Just because I think it does, as far as legacy sequels are concerned, I think it makes all the right moves.
Good. Then we're going to find out.
And that's why I'm very curious about Scream opening next week. This week.
Actually, opening in a couple of days. I think this is good.
That's why I was like, I'm trying to pretend that we're not recording this early. But now it's out there. This is recorded This is pre-New Year's
It
Eve.
is. We're in
For all of
December
you
still.
wondering at home. It was just Christmas.
The funny thing is, we've recorded these 3 episodes. We kind of like recorded them without any real idea, official idea of when we were going to start releasing them. We had this whole thing in mind. I was going to release in December and go week by week. I had an idea we were going to do in January. And then I said, I'm going to drop them all that week of. We're going to do a week of leading to Scream 2022. So that's where we ended up. And hopefully I haven't changed my mind again, or else I'm really going to sound stupid. Because I could change my mind when we do.
That's no different than any other day.
Scream 4.
But that's...
Wow. Little shot fired there at the end.
Look, I'm here to create the chaos, and I'm glad that all these wonderful people at home got to listen to 2 mediocre white dudes talk about the behind the scenes of their podcast while they were talking about a movie made by a not so mediocre white dude.
A very unmediocre white dude. One of the greatest of all time, in my estimation.
Yes.
I have to do a watch through of his stuff soon.
But this movie is not.
No, this is not his best. Hampered by studio, hampered by development, hampered by a lot of things. I don't blame Wes.
The lack of Jamie Kennedy. I'm never going to.
No, I'm not either. That's honestly one reason why I think in my head it's going to be hard for Scream 4 to top Scream 2, because at least Scream 2 did have some Jamie Kennedy. Then on the other hand, Scream 2 killed
such great character.
Scream 2 killed Jamie Kennedy though, so that definitely earns it a black point. So we'll have to find out. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for listening. We are not quite, like I said, I came through. We are not the 2 hours that this bloated movie was. We're getting close. So I want to end it now before we get there. We're not going to be bloated. We're just 2 mediocre white dudes, not bloated.
Speak for yourself. I had a big.
Actually, I nothing but I did too, so I am a little bit bloated. But either way,
yeah. See,
you're proving me a liar. But that's what you're here for. You're keeping me honest. I'm okay with that.
That's what I do, man. I try to keep you honest, and I hope that I've made people laugh along the way.
And hopefully you'll come back tomorrow on PLD Projects for one last episode of 2 Mediocre White Dudes before Scream 5, or not Scream 5, but Scream 2022 comes out. We will have an episode.
It's Scream 5. We're not doing that. We're not giving them the satisfaction.
Not going to go with the 5 cream.
No, it's Scream 5. Hollywood, stop being fucking lazy. True. That's all I
agreed.
Stop.
That's funny. That's funny. I'm about to say goodbye, but Scream 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You would think that's lazy enough, having just throwing a number in the title, but chopping the number off is even lazier.
I hate it so much, man. Like Halloween 2018, stop this nonsense. Like it's Halloween Returns or whatever. Like call it literally anything else. Why are you calling it Halloween?
I digress. Scream 5 comes out on Friday. We'll be back Wednesday. Hopefully, I'm hoping Wednesday. We're going to record on Monday our reactions to watching Scream 5, and we will give you another episode on that Wednesday. And on that day, we will announce where we will go next with 2 mediocre white dudes. I hope you're with us on that journey. So from 2 mediocre white dudes, stay mediocre, everybody.
Be as mediocre as possible. Do not strive for more. Mediocrity is the bar. We love you and